This is just a sample of the audiobook. To get the complete audiobook, access the link posted in the first comment.
Literary pairing, tragedy, and humor. Without stooping to sermonizing or psychobabble, the book offers blunt, incisive commentary on our society. While turning the pages, one cannot help but wonder, what does it say about America that Brown and his buddies were conditioned from the get-go for the tragic consequences of low expectations? And how do we account for the chilling casualness with which Claude Brown resigned himself to a life of crime and imprisonment? Throughout the book, such weighty issues come nestled in a breezy narrative that is laugh-out-loud funny. Readers will howl while following Brown into his first clumsy romance with a girl called Sugar. He was crazy for Sugar, but she was too ugly to date in public. And then there was Brown's annual reform school visit to the home of, get this, Eleanor Roosevelt, who was deeply committed to social causes. After pondering why he'd not seen roaches in her big house, Brown concluded the sneaky bugs would likely come out of hiding after he and the rest of Eleanor's guests were gone. Humor aside, Manchild is much more than an entertaining yarn about an extremely wayward child. This is a sociological work in its own right. Manchild provides a glimpse into the plight of generations of black families that fled the suffocating rural South in the 1940s, 50s, and 60s. They migrated north, only to find that the concrete promised land was merely a different, more densely populated hell. The sojourn that landed Brown's family in New York is reminiscent of the crossings of many ethnic migrations. Yet Manchild demonstrated that the African-American version of that rite was a uniquely dicey undertaking. It was loaded with racial landmines that often exploded, leaving dark travelers' lives shattered. Claude Brown survived. He had every reason to crumble under the weight of the limited options history handed him, and there were times in this riveting tale when it seemed he might just yield to violence or drugs or madness and self-destruct. Yet, against enormous odds, he claimed his life as his own and had one hell of a ball. After a trip to law school, he ultimately devoted himself to social activism on behalf of at-risk youth. I met Claude Brown some years ago in Washington, D.C. I had just published Makes Me Wanna Holler and was traveling the promotion circuit. Brown and I were brought to BET to do a joint interview. Brown was jovial and very generous with advice. You're going to meet a lot of people and get invited to a lot of parties, he predicted. Don't let too many people buy you drinks. That was classic Sonny trying to pull my coat. On some level, I had expected the cocky dude who'd fondly alluded to short pants days to pimp through the doorway, sidle up, and slap me 5. But here, before me, was an older man, pot-bellied and gray. Brown had earned his street creds nearly a generation before my time. The images Manchild evoked were so powerful and clearly drawn that Brown, the young blood, the fast-living cat who gave as much as he got, had remained frozen in my mind. That's what great books do. They arrest the imagination and leave it suspended, sometimes indefinitely. People old enough to actually remember the America of Manchild often use the book as a reference point. For many blacks, the book authenticated their particular reality, which was largely overlooked in the broader world. In the 1950s and 60s, when Martin Luther King and others commanded the nation's attention by marching in the streets, there were a whole lot of disengaged Claude Browns, invisible black folk, hanging in the streets. Readers too young to have experienced the period will nevertheless recognize universal elements in Manchild that ring strikingly familiar. Like few writers then or since, Brown captured the essence of what it means to confront a world run by adults who either don't know or seem to have forgotten just how tough it is to manage the business of growing up. In this, the 21st century, so often cited brightly as the age of Obama, It would be tempting to assume that Brown's story merely recalls days long gone by. It is a testament to Manchild's raw, commanding